Okay, awesome. Thank you, Patrick. Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Hoyos. I'm very happy to be here moderating this panel. I'm one of the co-founders of the Conscious Fund. We're a European-based early-stage VC fund, primarily focused on the emerging psychedelic medicine space at the seed and Series A level primarily. And with me today, we have Tyler Bryden of Speak AI and Lucia Huang of Osmind. And rather than have me bore you with going through their bios, I'll just let them jump right in and introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their companies.
Beautiful. Go ahead, Lucia.
Oh, thanks, Tyler. Hi, everyone. I'm Lucia. I'm co-founder and CEO of Osmind. I'm really thankful to be here. Thank you, Conscious Fund and Psychedelic Capital and Microdose and everyone else for having us. Just a little bit about me and Osmind. I come from more of a business background in healthcare. So I have been in the healthcare industry for a number of years in a variety of roles. I actually started on the investing side myself, so kind of know what it was like to be on the other side of the table and how much fun that is. But most recently was operating at a neuroscience biotech startup called Verge Genomics, where I helped to scale that startup from seed stage to Series A. The company was using AI for target discovery for various neuro and neuropsychiatric diseases. And that got me really, really excited about the potential for psychedelic medicine to help people who really have failed to find, solace in our conventional medical system and our conventional mental health system. So when I was at Stanford a couple of years ago for my MBA degree, I met my co-founder, Jimmy, who's not here today, but who is really fundamental to Osmind. He was in med school at the time at Stanford, and we both realized how excited we were about these new approaches to mental health and how really we're at an inflection point in mental health where oncology was a decade ago. We've got so many new modalities, new technologies, new understandings of the brain and ways to measure things. And we really wanted to build software that would help not just the providers and patients who will be benefiting from this field, but also researchers and drug development companies as well who will be developing new therapies. So Osmind is really building the digital infrastructure for the next era of mental health, including FDA-approved psychedelic medicine. We have an electronic health record that we launched last year that serves providers in treatment-resistant mental health, including ketamine and future FDA-approved psychedelic medicines. And the software also aggregates insights that allow us to help researchers as well. So I'm really excited to be here today and to tell you guys a little bit more about our journey, and very excited to be sharing this panel with Tyler, a good friend of mine who's the founder of Speak AI.
Beautiful. Wow, Lucia, that was wonderful. Hello, everyone. Very nice to see everyone. I'm Tyler Bryden. I'm the founder of a company called Speak AI. Really looking through that lens of technology as well too. And a lot of this, I think, many of us here are here for very personal reasons. And myself was a struggle with my own mental health after my hockey career. And what I found very fascinating was in Canada we have a lot of wonderful things going on in healthcare, but there's still a big gap in mental health. And the onus was really on myself after going through sort of a crisis period to really rehabilitate my own self. And so through that journey, I was doing I was just recording audio notes, video notes, text notes. I was using Evernote and just writing everything I could, just trying to get it out of my head. And the thought that I had that was sort of, I guess, interesting in what has developed Speak AI was why isn't this process giving me any insights back into myself? And so that's really what started the journey of Speak AI. And the idea is really a media and language analysis platform. So if I'm, writing notes or recording audio notes or video notes or even doing, interviews or therapy sessions throughout a long period of time, how can we look at each one of those media files individually, but how can we also look at that all together? And what are the similarities? What are the differences? What are the changes that we're seeing before therapy, after therapy, during the process? And really trying to understand what are these indicators, what are these things in our language that can help us foster growth or avoid a downward spiral. And so I'm very passionate about that. I grew from audio recording, was a hip hop fan, and just love of language, and very proud to sort of turn that into something that feels very integrated, and just helping sort of further the psychedelic movement as a whole.
Awesome, thank you guys. So I think to start off this panel, which we called the first raise for a reason, I think we wanted to speak a little bit to the entrepreneur experience. I know in the audience we definitely have we likely have a lot of entrepreneurs that are either thinking about entering the space or already starting to work on a business. And obviously one of the most top of mind things for entrepreneurs is capital, right? And how to think about fundraising, how to think about capitalizing your business. So to start off, I think it'd be helpful if you helped us understand a little bit about how you thought about money and capitalizing the business as you were starting off. So I know some folks maybe think a little bit more about bootstrapping, some folks maybe think a little bit more about going out and initially raising a round. So what was your calculus as you were entering your businesses?
Yeah. All right, Tyler, you're going to have to go first on the next one.
I'll take it.
Too gracious.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah, so just to give you a little bit of background on our funding story, and I think, Michael, you really touched on the right thing here, is that everyone is going to have different needs and a different journey, and Tyler and I can both speak to that. For us, we are a venture-backed startup. We went through Y Combinator last year as one of YC's first psychedelic investments, and we raised our seed round a couple of months ago, led by a firm called General Catalyst. It's a sort of general Silicon Valley VC that's invested in the likes of Livongo, Mindstrong, Oscar Health, and a lot of other prominent healthcare companies. So I think we've really gone a little bit more with the traditional venture capital route. But for us, we really saw the need for VC, just given kind of where we want to grow and our plans for that. So we launched our software in June of last year, and we're working in 150 practices around the US. We're actually based in California. I think the location I have in my profile is wrong, but I think that was really enabled by the venture capital that we were able to raise. Obviously, that comes with trade-offs, like you are diluting yourself if you're taking capital. And there are a lot of pressures as well as from investors to be growing at a certain rate and hitting certain numbers. But for us, we saw that was really necessary to achieve the trajectory of growth and the scale that we really wanted to see. But I will say that I think has enabled us to really reach the scale that we have and become the #1 software provider in the psychedelic medicine space in that short amount of time, and will enable us to hopefully keep on doing so. But happy to dive into more detail after Tyler gives his intro too.
Yeah, beautiful. And I mean, Lucia and I have, I've had the honor to talk to Lucia and Jimmy for quite a while as they've gone through this journey, and to see the growth and the growth, is amazing from the reach that they're doing, but also that they are leading like with heart, with love. They've done a lot of work to really put that out there. And I know they're living those ideals as well too. On my side, it was, a little interesting, I guess, because I started coming, I had a firm that I was running before this. And so what came in with this process for me was pre-existing customers and then pre-existing revenue. And what that allowed me to do was I've restricted my own growth, but we've also been able to keep control of the entire company. So we're 100% equity owners in Speak AI, which is something we're very proud of. And with that, because we've built up the technology side, we've actually been able to get a lot of non-dilutive capital. I'm going to drop a link in here after with like all the funding programs that are available for Canada right now, and something really valuable to explore and is worthwhile. So, if you're doing innovation for technology, you have programs like NRC IRAP, you have Shred in Canada. There's some amazing ways to actually get non-dilutive capital. And really the strategy for us there is, as this space continues to emerge and grow, it's like, how can we make sure that we're just doing things right? And sometimes I have that little bit of that hesitancy around investment. We've had investment offers, and it scares me a little bit, because I just want to make sure that we are actually offering, value to the entire psychedelic movement, but then also to the, end consumers and the end users of medicines, of psychedelic therapy, and really moving a little bit slower through that process, but also very thoughtfully and carefully. And that's allowed us to build, I think, a really strong reputation in the space and help out a lot of people in different ways.
Awesome. And I think I think one thing that's probably on a lot of folks' mind is, it's a new space. It's obviously a space that for many years, there's a lot of taboo around it. It's not something that was mainstream by any means, right? That conversation is obviously changing a lot now, but I can imagine that being in this unique space, especially the early stages, has likely presented some unique challenges. How have those conversations been when you've been speaking, with potential investors or their potential partners? What sort of things have you run into, and how have you managed them?
I'll do it this time, Lucy. I'll do it.
There we go.
So from our side, I think there's something really interesting. And is because we've built this sort of media analysis platform that has value across multiple industry and segments. It's allowed us to grow and actually, have different forms of diversified revenue to actually grow the company. But then if we get approached by, for example, investors or venture capitalists in healthcare, or more specifically psychedelics, they start to look at, are you guys actually focused enough? Are you, we're trying to bring psychedelics to a large scale and make this accessible. And yet you've got, customers and users who are doing X or doing Y. And so we get pushback on that from an investor standpoint, that you guys aren't focused enough. You're not focused on one specific problem. And I think that's a limiter for us in terms of injecting capital into the organization. But at the same time, it allows us to grow at a very sustainable rate. We were net earnings positive in Q3 and Q4 of 2020. And that gives us a lot of control and a lot of say in what we want to do and what we actually want to do as next steps with the business.
Yeah, that's great. For us, I think it's interesting having gone the sort of traditional Silicon Valley venture route. I think everyone's seen in the news how much Silicon Valley has really started to turn on to psychedelics. And for us, what we've seen is sort of an interesting catch-22 with that, and that you have a lot of firms who are starting to get interested in it, but there is still some reluctance to really dive in deep. I think there are a few firms that have really demonstrated strong interest, such as Founders Fund, which is Peter Thiel's VC fund, 8VC, and a couple of others. But I think most mainstream firms are still a little bit hesitant about making full bets on it. For us, the way we see ourselves is we are a mental health company first and foremost, and we're going to go wherever the science takes us. And right now that really is psychedelic medicine, and also things like neuromodulation, which are unrelated, but still very powerful ways to help treatment-resistant patients. So when we have our conversations, we do see ourselves as a mental health company, and that's where investors see us as well. But I think there is starting to be more and more interest in psychedelic medicine from just mainstream investors as well, but not as much as particular firms and people who have clearly indicated interest in that.
Awesome, thank you. And Lucia, sorry to go back to back here with you, but I have a question to you. Yeah. Obviously, you just went through the summer 2020 batch at Y Combinator.
Yeah,
so that was extremely impressive. Congratulations. So like a 1% acceptance rate. For those in the audience that aren't aware, YC is the most prestigious accelerator in the world, and it's harder to get into that than Harvard or any top school. Harder to get into than Stanford. So from going through that experience, maybe could you speak to a little bit about what that was like and what sort of things you think you were able to do that set you apart and helped you ultimately be accepted into the program?
Yeah, absolutely.